You know that novel you've never written, what is it about? Removing wisdom teeth makes you stupider. The wise man can pick up a grain of sand and envision a whole universe. But the stupid man will just lie down on some seaweed and roll around until he's completely draped in it. Then he'll stand up and go, "Hey, I'm Vine Man. Single quote quote. Jack Handy. What does this even mean? Guess you shouldn't have had your wisdom teeth removed." A girl who has a head injury and develops the ability to go back in time whenever she falls asleep. Right before the head injury, she was talking about how many opportunities she missed out on because of fear. So she goes back and changes things that she wants to change, like not having her first kiss when she could have, dealing with abuse, etc. And as I was typing this, I remembered there is a TV show literally about this topic that my mother is obsessed with called Being Erica. The conversations my mom and I had as I drove her around while she died of cancer. I've been planning a novel for about 3 years about a girl in her early teens whose best friend commits suicide. And ever since then she started going crazy since she never had any friends apart from her and suffers from social anxiety. This makes her go crazy and she eventually starts seeing her. And though she's obviously imagining her, she doesn't know that and does anything she's told. She soon goes as far as killing her own sister because she was told to. At the end she is sent to a mental asylum and it is revealed that her friend never killed herself. And it was actually the main character who killed her because she didn't like that she had other friends. So she decided to kill her with her bare hands so that her soul is only with her. I've always been too nervous to write it down in case I seem crazy lol. Vladimir Nabokov published Lolita and Thomas Harris published the Hannibal Lecter books. You can do this. No one will think any less of you. It's fiction. World-famous Academy Award-winning method actor is casted to play a serial killer and he starts killing people in order to be able to make it an amazing performance. Mine's a short story. It's the story of the 10 plagues on Egypt from the point of view of the angel of death. At first he has moral problems with killing all of the firstborn. But he also knows he has no choice in the matter. Over each day of the plagues, he engages in a bit of cognitive dissonance and gradually rationalizes murder until he truly sees it as the right action. I had an idea going through my head for a novel. Told my then GF and she laughed her ass off in my face, saying I'm not a writer, that it couldn't be good and to stop daydreaming. I started writing a few weeks after we broke up. It's gonna be 2 years since that. She sounds like an unsupportive CT. Good on you to stick to your guns and follow the dream of writing. Have the courage to continue this endeavor and I wish you the best of luck with the outcome. Though you may not be open to share the idea. Are you able to provide even a very generalized summary or even let us know how far you think you are from completing it? I think I'm halfway through all of it. I worked on the intention of the plot, the lore and the characters for over a year. And only after that I sat down to actually break the content into chapters in which I would tell this or that. The beginning and the end are pretty much etched in stone, as it is the feeling I want the audience to experience when they close the book. That's why I had to give it a face wash and change the vocabulary completely to make them sound more real. Like insults and such. As for the plot itself, let's just say that it's about a guy who can travel through dimensions and space-time rifts on Earth. A power bestowed onto him by vestiges of an ancient civilization long before the dinosaurs. The idea is that he has to save the world in a very unorthodox way using these travels. But every time he comes back to this reality to make progress, it really f's him up. His liver starts failing, then his kidneys. He gets diabetes and so on as he gets older. As he spiritually gets more and more godlike, his body crumbles. It's a trade-off. That sounds really unique. Stick with it, my dude. Scientists were wrong. Karma is real, but it works a bit differently than expected. Reality is made of an infinity of superposed dimensions, and each action you take tunes your brain and sends your consciousness in a slightly different reality. Good actions sends you to better realities. Bad actions take you to worse realities. You might not be able to notice it. But those tiny incremental changes in reality add up fast, and the worse you act, the worse the world gets around you. There is no afterlife. No reincarnation. Elders were wrong about this. But they were right about paradise and HL. And it's right here among the living. We're just not all conscious in the same version of reality. It's about a prime minister who was kidnapped by a Chinese submarine. Dark superhero novel. A sad, depressed guy jumps from top of a building only to open his eyes and realize he is floating above the pavement. He has no memory of why he chose to jump. Hero gets his suppressed power. But unlike a generic superhero, his power only lasts till he is depressed and suffering from mental health issues. He goes on to help save a lot of lives, but each person he saves takes away from his superpower as he keeps feeling better about himself. Towards the end of the novel, he has 15-20% of his flight power left and uses that to fly one last time to enjoy the freedom. While doing so, he realizes he is not depressed anymore. At that moment, his powers disappear and he crashes to the ground, breaking both his legs. Years go by and our hero gradually falls back into depression as he is not able to do the one thing that made happy: saving people's lives. He goes to the top of his apartment building and jumps, only to open his eyes and find himself floating above the pavement with no memory of why he chose to jump. I like that a lot. Although I think it would make a killer short story rather than a novel. I agree. Extending it to novel length would add in a lot of details that sort of detract from this main narrative. How my extended family basically tricked and manipulated my father into paying my second cousin's wedding. 30-year-old male. Down to the church flowers and toothpicks at the reception. We are a middle-class family in Europe. They then asked him not to tell anyone because it's embarrassing. Next week my cousin and his 6-month pregnant bride buy a used BMW coupe. There is a load of crazy details and the characters involved basically have to be put on page. No lie would read this. Probably an enraging set of details in that whole story. You know it's bad because of all the second cars they decide to buy. It was a BMW. A dystopian future in which sleep is not counted as prison time. Because you are not conscious when asleep. Prisoners begin using more and more extreme methods to keep themselves awake. So they serve as little time as possible. And prison violence sees an all-time high as inmates attempt to knock each other unconscious, so as to make their opponent's jail time last longer. You're not stealing my ideas. That's a great idea. Grover Modich as your everyday Groold. Working at the factory making the product. But in secret he is working on his novel. The Before. But as he is about to start typing out the story, his DK falls off. But then a co-worker picks it up and uses as a. I had a vague idea when I used to grow and smoke weed. Something about a plant so addictive its addiction travels backwards in time. So as you're germinating the seeds your path is locked and you're a slave to the plant before you've even smoked it. Haha FK that other guy. That's a really thoughtful and interesting premise. Yeah, what a BD. He's critiquing a vague idea that never made it to paper. In a thread literally about vague ideas that never made it to paper. I love this. It's like Minority Report, but instead of being locked up for a crime you've yet to commit you're just destined to become a stupid stoner, haha. Or more like Arrival, where time is non-linear so you have all the emotions and have already felt the high but you've yet to actually smoke it. I'm in. Write this. Company rolls out teleportation technology for the masses. It's actually just cloning. You die each time you use it, but a perfect clone is made. Said company collects all the necessary data to reproduce clones of you anytime they want. They invest in research that allows them to implant new memories in clones. They use the modified clones for cheap labor and dangerous jobs in space, Mars. Main character fries every teleportation machine he uses. He's just trying to get to work. Company sends people to capture him to figure out why. Cue reluctant hero, chosen one trope. He attempts to expose the whole operation and bring it down. 3 roommates get a 4th roommate. But they hate him. So they decide to kill him legally. They find some ancient diplomatic, International War Powers Act allowing them to do so. They go on a long journey to fulfill it. All the while the 4th roommate is oblivious. The climax is that they successfully kill him. Think of it like a really dark Harold and Kumar. The short version. An ancient set of civilization wiped one another out with all manner of various superweapons, effectively shattering the magic, technology, physics, natural laws that existed at the time. The war essentially broke physics as it originally occurred. The longer, more detailed description. It's a few thousand years later. But the nature of some of these weapons is now being rediscovered. They weaponized the creation of pocket dimensions. Each civilization involved in the war utilized small breaches in reality that they created to store world-ending weapons. They broke down the local system's asteroid belt, some of the moons, and even a few of the outer planets just for the mass for immense capital ships that could be hidden in dimensions that now open into, say, someone's closet, basement, a random cave, etc. A few of the breach locations are being rediscovered. And current science is just starting to rediscover how to open these doors. The capital ships aren't all there is, those are few and far between, mostly supply caches, small mechs, armored vehicles, small arms. Magical supplies are hidden everywhere, on old battlefields, in the oldest of cities, anywhere these civilizations once existed. The smallest of dimensions are beginning to fall open on their own. And the pockets of pre-apocalypse space being exposed to this dimension is healing the broken attributes of physics that once allowed for the creation and eventual destruction of things that the older civilizations built. It became popular not only for military use, but for civilians as well. Pocket dimensions were torn into homes just for extra storage, for cars, for food hoarding, etc. Some could be keyed to open for specific individuals. Some would open if you only knew the correct phrase to speak in its proximity. And so on. Areas where portals have been opened are instantly worth a fortune, as this means that physics will function as it once did in those small, isolated areas. A rune or spell inscribed, incanted correctly outside this area will do nothing. Perhaps glow slightly. When brought inside an area where a portal has recently fallen open, it will function perfectly, or fail spectacularly. This has resulted in all manner of chaos. Petty criminals are finding ancient small arms that can detonate entire buildings or city blocks. Giant, ancient war machines, automata mostly, are automatically setting the first person they see as their owner, admin, after having been unattended for millennia. This also includes dogs, cats, which had been genetically, magically enhanced to be fully sapient, without magical reinforcement. This effect has lessened, but it's beginning to take hold slowly again. This can result in scenarios such as what we would see as normal dogs suddenly having command of multi-ton mechs that can understand them, either wreaking havoc, or letting their masters command the mecha, depending on how well trained they were. Children with spellbooks that were previously seen as toys, reproductions of ancient lore, suddenly find themselves with real magic. People obsessed with studying them suddenly find themselves with the potential to be archmagi, and are approached by ancient systems that recognize them as mages, or potential mages, and are seeking out new admins. Entire new markets have opened up for artifacts, especially the old consumer technology. which has been preserved in pockets of suspended decay. Entropy has been conquered once, even food didn't decay when stored in these. Many civilians had been in their own private dimensional pockets when physics collapsed. Pushed to the brink by extreme overuse, by the time portal locks began failing, they had all gone completely insane from the isolation. They hadn't aged, but trapped inside with exits that no longer worked. Or simply killed anyone who entered them. There weren't many found that were even sane enough to speak. Only very few were left capable of interacting with others, save for the few that had suspended animation tech inside their pocket dimensions. Rewards are offered for anyone wearing old-world clothing, or found speaking unknown, unrecognized languages, or babbling incoherently after having appeared in empty rooms. A few ancient scientists have been recovered. And a few teachers, those are always instantly snapped up by the state. Those that find, turn them in alive, are rewarded with riches sufficient to buy small countries. Assuming the individual turns to be sane. Which is rarely the case. Some portals, rather than opening to only pocket dimensions, served as airlocks to the old mining facilities that were used to mine other planets in the local solar system. The asteroid belt, outer heliosphere space stations, or just opened into what used to be facilities on other planets, and is now just hard vacuum inside what were once structures. In a few disastrous cases, when both portals fell open at once, the airlock space failed and opened small townships to hard vacuum until something large enough and strong enough to hold the portal closed was placed around it. And so on. I've really only built the world so far. No main characters, but it could go anywhere from disaster movie to Indiana Jones type scenarios. Or full-on JRPG with mecha and Magitech magic. If I could upvote this twice I would. Sounds really interesting. Please finish this and drop me a line. We'll buy both the audiobook, the hard copy, the pocket book and the ebook. Me too. Sounds really interesting. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos.